Sound. 1, 2, sound.
There you go. I know who might be there. You want to think?
Test 2.
Oh, gee.
There's a barrier down there. There's a railing there. No, they're just getting drinks and heading back down. We'll be here. There's a couple more coming. There's a few more coming. Four. It's 2 and 4. Yeah, one sip, one sip. Yeah, let me just double check. Back watch. Yeah. I have no pictures of Dunville. So I want to know what's anyway, I'm not sounding it. Sounds because this was last. I was working it. Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, for sauna.
We're going short here, boys. Don't worry. No, you're all itching to get at it.
You want to do it?
It's still time to get a
You want
pint.
to Right. All right, guys, guys and girls, we're going to kick off. So our next taste is with Dunville's Irish whiskey from Belfast. And great to have Seamus Og.
You say that in how?
He's down. He's going to talk us through the evening and talk us through 6 fantastic samples. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed it. It's our 16, 17 tasting now. Great to see you all here. Have so many for it, and we've a couple joining us from home as well online. So yeah, have a great evening.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Who hasn't had Dunville? It's fantastic whiskey.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
You have to say, but you say it every month. All right, yeah, guys. First off, welcome for a Friday night whiskey tasting. This is an absolute class turnout. So fair play to you all, giving up your Friday evening to come drink a load of booze. It's tough work, but I appreciate you for it. Before we begin, anybody here has never tried a Dunville's before? I will. Those of you who didn't raise your hands there, would anybody say they've got a favourite Dunville's within the range? You're not getting that tonight. No. Which the fuck, there's 6 of them at this point. We did that's one we did towards the start, but we'll talk about more about the history of the Dunville's brand, both before and now with the Echlinville era as well. But yeah, just real briefly. So I'm Seamus Og. I'm the global brand ambassador for Dunville's Irish Whiskey. I'm delighted to be down here with you tonight. For me, very, very odd doing a Friday night tasting. Generally, your whiskey drinkers are Monday to Thursday, which really sort of separates the animals from the normal people. But it was Friday night, you can always use this as an excuse to have a few wee drinks before you head out for the evening. Yes, look, I don't like speaking to people in a room full of whiskey, especially when you've sat for a wee while at this point without a whiskey in your hand. So we're going to do 6 whiskeys here tonight. Please try and sort of pace as the rest of us as we go. It'll make things better for everybody all around. We're going to do the first 3 whiskeys in the top row, left to right. They're going to take about a 10-minute break, give you a chance to go get to the bathroom, get another pint in, get a cigarette, because I think personally, doing if I go to whiskey tasting, that's how I like them to be. And in the second half, we've some big liquids there and a couple of single cask bottles for you too. So want to bring back in, pretty much focus at that point. Front row seats, how you getting on? Gosh, and front row may get wet. Right, yeah, so guys, with that, please grab the whiskey in the top left there. You see the numbers above them, it's number 1. So, yes, please, have a little nose, have a little sip of that. I'm going to talk through the whiskies as you're going at it, okay? This is not I know most sort of whiskey tastings go sort of low price point up. That's not how we like to start. We like to begin with our 3 Crowns Sherry finish, okay? Reason for it, this whiskey is a beautiful introduction to what the Dunville's range has become over the years with ourselves. This is a blend of Irish whiskey. It is roughly 50% 5-year-old malt and roughly 50% of a 7 to 8-year-old grain whiskey. With the sherry finish, we do it a little bit differently than a lot of other brands in the fact that it's not just one component. It's finished in sherry. The entire liquid is married and then finished together. So it follows the 3 rules of our cask finishing that we stick to the Dunville's brand. You'll see more of that in the second half. But essentially, we do first fill, small cask for a longer period of time. We'll talk more about that one afterwards. But first sip of the night, how do you find that? Yeah? So that one is, well, it's the reason why we start with it. It's a lovely, soft, it's really well balanced, nice, approachable whiskey. Bottled at 43.5%, very drinkable. That is what we strive for when we make whiskey. We want people to be able to drink it, preferably. So 43.5%, lovely, soft. That sherry sort of coating to it. It's not as prominent as you'll find in the single malts, but 18 months in the first fill of Oloroso hogshead, giving it sort of nice, juicy red fruits on the outside. To me, the big thing that really stands out here is the coating on the throat going down. It's not quite silky or creamy. To me, it is just like butter sliding down your throat, like sort of butter coming off a pan, hot, coming right down there. Maybe it's because I'm lactose intolerant and I crave the thought of butter from 15 years ago. That really stands out to me, but that's what it feels like to me. First impression of that one? Yeah. So, tell me, has anyone tried that one before? You go get it. You will get a bottle tomorrow, will you? Fucking fantastic, sweet. I'll get that on the record somewhere. But yeah, look, that's what we found was we used to start a tasting with the 1808, which is a bit bigger, spicier, a little bit smokier whiskey. But by beginning with this, it's really just going to warm the palate up and sort of acclimatise what the rest of the range is going to be. So within tonight's tasting, the first 3 whiskies are going to be our 3 blends from the core range, and then we'll step into our single malts and try across 3 different styles of sherry cask finish. So can anybody hazard a guess as to when the Dunville Whiskey Company was first founded? Can anybody hazard a guess as to when the whiskey company was first founded? I'm glad you can tell the time anyway. We're all right. So, yeah, it's good. 1808 is the year the Dunville's Whiskey Company was first founded in Belfast. Unfortunately, it closed in 1936 due to a bit of tragedy within the family and the fact that 2 of the sons had died, one fighting in war, and another one who had, to be honest, a bit of a drinking problem, was sort of how records go. He had emigrated off to Australia, so they didn't want to bring him home to hand him a whiskey distillery the size that it was at the time. So Dunville's was distilled up the Grosvenor Road in the Royal Irish Distilleries from that period of sort of the 1850s through to 1936. There's a famous whiskey writer and travel historian, Alfred Bernard, did a great book at the end of the 1800s where he traveled to pretty much every distillery in both Ireland and Scotland. At the time, that's pretty much the whiskey producing world. And he recorded that the Royal Irish Distillers, or the Dunville's Company, was the biggest producer and stockholder of whiskey that he had visited on that trip across all of these distilleries. So pretty much we were one of the biggest producers in the world at a point. So that's why once Dunville's was closed down, it really was a tragedy, and that's how it's been recorded. While they closed it down, 36, after all the other northern brands had started to fold, they were still a profitable company with the amount of whiskey they were selling. But Jarlath, anybody know Jarlath Watson in the room? Sorry to hear that, lads. Jarlath, if you're watching this, which I hope he's not, Jarlath is he would tell you he's head of whiskey. Technically, he's our financial director. He's an accountant by trade, but he's one of the most passionate and genius people I've ever met when it comes to whiskey. His nose, his palate, and his passion is just absolutely insane. But Jarlath sort of laughs about it, 'cause at the end of the day, his job is to look after the books. And he says that the business morals were a lot better back then, and the fact that the company was closed rather than continue without a Dunville at the head of the company. So the company would carry on the name, and unfortunately, Dunville's Whiskey Company was closed at that point. And there's so much whiskey in barrel under bond at that point that it took 18 years of selling those casks off. They were selling at a good rate. There was so much of it that it took 18 years for the supply to be entirely depleted to people opening up other brands using that liquid. So, guys, with that, if you want to take a wee taste of the second whiskey, or how are we get on with the first? As soon as I said that, I loved about 7 heads of the room just threw them back at the same time. I was going to say, like, you're drinking them a wee bit slower pace than the guys I was doing in Galway last night with Galway Whiskey Club. Not that it's a competition of any kind. So before we go on to this one, is there anybody in the room that absolutely detests peat or smoke in their whiskies? You can be honest. What, one? The rest of you fair enough with them? All right, sweet. So at this point, see with the blends, I want you, if you can, if you weren't one of the ones that threw the neck back there, if you can leave a wee touch of each of the blends to go back to at the end of the first half here, okay? I probably should have told you that. It's not that important. It's what I'm going to, it's just fuck if am I going to have to run around topping up? Oh, fucking, then this is why we don't do Friday night tastings. Yeah, so look, with your 1808, like every brand has a bottle sits on shelf in that 30-35 euro mark, and you sort of need to have one. That's not the way we went about it whenever we revived the Dunville's brand. This came later down the line because we identified that was a gap we needed to have to really introduce the brand out there. So our 1808 is quite a complex blend for the age and the price point of it. You're looking at between 5 and 6 showed liquids going into this. You have 7 different components making up this blend, which is quite intricate for all the price point it sits at. You're looking at all 3 styles of Irish whiskey. You've got about 60% grain, about 25% malt, and about 15% of Echlinville's own pot still whiskey going in here. Now, from that, each of the 3 styles is coming out of both virgin American oak and first fill bourbon casks. And if you have a wee nose in there, can anybody tell me what the 7th component is? If you can, you get hired as a blender right now. Right, you're starting on Monday, big lad. Yeah, so there's only about 4% of peated malt in the entire blend, but it's enough that you get a little sort of a slight smoke in the nose. To me, it's not there in the mid body of it, but on the finish, you almost exhale a little bit of smoke as well. When you actually, if you lengthen this one with a bit of soda water or sparkling water, like a classic highball, the smoky element really comes through. But it's just enough in there between the virgin oak and that little bit of pot still. There's a nice spice coming to the whiskey, and with the peated malt, there's a nice wee bit of smoke as well. It was almost designed at the time. We started, again, like I told you, it wasn't the first whiskey we came out with. We came out down the line and we looked at it as, if we're out drinking whiskey, something that could be in around €5 a measure, what do you want it to do? You want it to work next to a pint of Guinness. So, anybody got a pint in their hand? Yeah. Fucking less people at a tasting than I've ever seen with a pint. Muppets. I hope you don't mind if I have one. But if anybody has a stout there, I would say to you, take a mouthful of the 1808, give a wee second, have a mouthful of your Guinness, and you're going to see that the nice thing is it doesn't wash away the taste of the whiskey like it does with a lot of other ones in that sort of price point, your younger blends that are sort of higher grain content. Raising the little bit of spice and smoke, bigger backbone and body, and really holds up. This is usually a really good point because everybody's doing 2 drinks, 2 hands, but he's let me down tonight. No, I would normally, but it's a bit odd being recorded doing a tasting. Last time I walked into a tasting, there was like one of them ring lights or the camera things, and the microphone was in Bratislava, and I was sort of like, "This is grand. Nobody understands a word I'm saying anyway." So it's the same. Is that a slag to me or yourselves? But well, actually, there's been a worse one yet. I went in one time. Do you ever remember the Britney Spears headset mic that sort of pops around the side? I was given one of them before, and I was almost singing the whole night. It was class. But guys, at this point, would you say you preferred whiskey 1 or whiskey 2? That's class. Nice split. Now, we're not going to jump into 3 just yet, but once we've done 3, generally what we always find is the 3 very different whiskies, but the room is always fairly evenly divided amongst them. Most of the time, the first whiskey will generally pip the post as far as quantity of hands up, go up for that one. But yeah, so Dunville's brand. Does anybody know where Echlinville Distillery is? No? Great. This is why they pay me to come talk about it then. So, yeah. Pardon?
Which one did you say?
Echlinville itself. So Echlinville Distillery is who I actually work directly for. We have a few different brands, but Dunville's takes about 95% of my time and about 99% of the company's focus. Thing was, we got the opportunity to revive the Dunville's Irish Whiskey brand back in 2012, and it's been a big mission for us because again, it was a huge company back in the day. Thinking back to the time when Belfast itself was producing 3.5 times more liquid, more whiskey than even in Dublin was. Belfast used to be the whiskey producing capital in Ireland, and I think that's sort of a fact that gets sort of swept under the carpet by a lot of the bigger brands in the south that have all the marketing budgets and stuff. But and what do we do to combat that? We send me down on a wee t-shirt to talk about it. How am I getting on? So Echlinville is the distillery that we work for. It is along the Ards Peninsula, about 40 minutes outside of Belfast. It's Ireland's farm distillery. In fact, we have 55 acres of barley fields. From you come in the front gates of Echlinville, you drive past these fields. Everything happens on site there for our own liquids, which is a matter of, well, Shane Braniff is the independent owner of the distillery. Shane's from down that direction, self-made businessman, and he decided he wanted to go into the distilling, taking an old manor house and the family farm that was around it, bringing it together, making that into, again, Ireland's first farm distillery. Now, if you ever get talking to Shane, he would tell you that he plows the fields himself. There was one point that there was a photographer brought out one day, and he jumped on the tractor to go out into the fields and make it look like it's his job. It's not. It's absolutely not. But yeah, so everything from we plow the fields to we sow the barley, grow it, harvest it. We traditionally floor malt it, which is once that's been soaked and germinated, poor Mick has to go out into the malting house and turn it all by hand with a shovel rather than using machines, because that's how the Dunville's brand used to do it. Whether that makes a big difference or not, we don't know, but it's beautifully romantic, and I'm not lying when I tell you that's the case. So yeah, from that on to mashing, fermenting, distilling, maturing, bottling, labeling, even wrapping the pallet and putting it onto the truck. Everything happens from the get-go to the end within our site at Echlinville Distillery. So if anyone's ever up in the north and wants to take a trip out, please give us a shout. You're all more than welcome. We do tours Fridays. 100%. I'll not be there, but you work away. Sure. Wrapping the door of the warehouse. No, Jarlath himself's usually there on Wednesday, so he's a good one to catch.
Is the warehouse on site there as well?
Yeah. So we have 3 whiskey warehouses on site. 3.
Even so, you say it's a farm-based
farm distillery. Yeah, it's a huge site.
Very contemporary. The still house.
The still house itself, yeah.
Compared to like most distilleries are
Yeah.
in old mills or old
Yeah.
buildings. Whereas
So
it's really
we
beautiful building, yeah.
we're currently in the process of trying to get planning permission to do a proper visitor centre in the old sort of courtyard stables, and they've been on site at the old manor house. But the still house itself, that was a fresh build in 2012. It began, and we ran our first distillation on the 5th of August 2013, which was also the 50th birthday of our owner Shane. So yeah, we have liquid that is just over 10 years old now at this point. We distill both pot still and malt. Of our production, about 70% will be pot still, 30% will be malt whiskey, but we have not released our own liquid yet at all. Now, we have plenty of it. We have warehouses filled with it, but our focus in the meantime has been sourcing beautiful double distilled single malt from, can't name the distillery, but from along the Cooley Peninsula. Double distilled malt, think about that one. And putting a lot of time and love into the finishing casks on it for the Dunville single malt range. Again, Jarlath, there's times I also get told you have to use his direct quotes and name drop them as much as possible. Yeah. But the thing is, with the Echlinville brand, so the Dunville brand, it was around a lot longer before us. It'll be around a lot longer after us. All we can do is be custodians and try and leave it in a better place than we found it. And I think so far we're doing pretty well with that. But yeah, guys, at this point, if you want to lift the wee third whiskey, keep in mind this one is now the liquid itself isn't peated. The label says Dunville's 3 Crowns peated. That is a peated cask finish. Okay, so the first liquid you had, it is the same base spirit. It is that same makeup of your half malt, half grain, but as opposed to going into a sherry cask for 18 months, this one goes into an ex-peated cask for about 12 to 15, depending on the batch. So another thing where the camera sort of does me a wee bit here. We are not going to tell you what cask it is we use, but the way around that is I'm going to tell you it's an ex-peated malt cask from an Islay distillery. It previously held a 10-year-old peated Islay malt. If you can get that from the nose, fantastic. If you can't work it out from that, it rhymes with Rifroig. So, yeah, look. So on that whiskey itself, ppm is absolutely 0. Okay, with 1808, there's 4% of peated malt in the mash bill. With this unpeated liquid, just finished in an ex-peated cask. So all of that smoke that has been withdrawn from the wood. So what you'll find is it's not like it's not a big sort of tongue full of turf. Not there's anything wrong with that. It's a nice, delicate, smoky coating outside your mouth. You still get the sort of sweet orange peel from the malt coming through in the middle. And any cigar smokers in the room? Maybe I will see you Wednesday. Class. No, back I think it was maybe 2 Octobers ago now. I helped launch a whiskey and cigar club in a bar up in Belfast, and from the research and development, and that was absolutely fantastic. Had to try different whiskeys, load of different cigars, see what's going to work for doing tastings. We did 3 fantastic tasting nights. The first one was 20 people, then it built up to 35, maxed the room out at that point. Next time round, was told there's 50 people going to be at it. It landed down, there were 70. So great night. But if you're a cigar smoker, one thing actually blew my mind with this whiskey, trying it next one, was having a taste of the whiskey first. Lovely big smoky coating of the mouth, but sort of delicate enough too. Once you had it, even just a nice clean middle of the road cigar, we puff of that. The smoke from the cigar dominated. The next sip of the whiskey, you're not getting the smoky element at all, but all the other components of that whiskey were heightened so much. It was like drinking a different thing out of your glass. So please, if you ever get a chance to try that one, absolutely fantastic. But guys, but would anybody say that whiskey was too smoky for them? Yeah, a couple of hands that said they detest smoke at the start. Try to convert you. That's all right. Didn't happen.
It's funny that, I mean, you probably wouldn't have seen many peated whiskies at all maybe 3-4 years ago, in the Irish market, whereas now every tasting that happens seems to have a peated.
So that's something myself and Derek King were chatting about it last night with the Galway Whiskey Club. So it's Irish whiskey in general has grown so much in the last few years. If you look back before we opened up Echlinville in 2013, there was 1 distillery in the north. You had Bushmills. We now have 11. I think the whole country's sitting at like 48 working distilleries now. I think that's the right number, something like that. 45, as opposed to 15 years ago. So it's class. The whole category is growing immensely. I'm lucky enough to have a job where I get paid to travel around the world and talk about whiskey and drink pints and stuff. So that's class. That shows where the industry's at. But I think that the peated element to Irish whiskey and becoming part of the portfolios now is because of the palates of other countries, other markets. We're all doing a lot of business across Europe. The likes of Germany and Austria are drinking Irish whiskey like it's nobody's business at the minute. But the thing is, a lot of them are used to peated. They're used to single malts and Scotch whiskies. So by having something like that in your portfolio, you can be a lot more appealing in those countries and to those sort of that demographic of drinkers. Like we spoke about it last night. If you look at like the guys down WD O'Connell, some of their stuff's incredible. Like the Bill, huge fan of that. Even Silky up in the Black Silky, the peated Irish whiskies right now. You have a bigger scope than just the content you've been used to years and years ago. I'd say that some kind of margin up to class. I got a bottle at auction last month. Irish whiskey auctions, of course. If you're watching, but I got a bottle of like the old airport exclusive, like the sherry cask finish, the old cooling malt, and honestly, it's just incredible. So yeah, it's really nice to see the interesting stuff coming with peated whiskey through Irish too. But for us, we decided to do the peated cask finish because for the sake of the output of our own liquid, we weren't going to start distilling any peated malt or liquid ourselves. But the cask finish was a nice way around it. It was quite experimental. It allowed us to take the 2-3 crowns and have the same liquid, 2 different cask finishes, and show the importance of the love and attention you put onto the wood for the liquids. Because again, we're fully transparent with it. Our single malts are not our own distillate. We're all about a lot of care and attention into the cask. You see the difference it makes when you have these two whiskeys next to each other. So at this point, well, if I do like a whiskey live or something, somebody comes up to the stand, first thing is always you want to have a blend before a single malt. Don't necessarily need you to try all 3 blends, but the question will be, do you prefer sweet, spicy, or smoky? Because if you look at the whiskeys you just had there in that order, it's a pretty easy way to simplify them, right? Yeah. So who would say whiskey number 1, the 3 Crowns Sherry, was a favourite of the 3? Me too. Right. Number 2, 1808. And finally, 3 Crowns Peated. Right. You also see, I mean, there's a nice, pretty good split there across the room, which is class. It's why we do tastings like this, is because the whiskies are all very different. You look at them on a shelf, you might be a bit confused and decide not to try any of them. But once you've tried, generally we have everyone in the room will pick one of those 3 and be like, you know what, I would give that a go. I do enjoy that one. So I'm going to take a wee sip myself.
And I mean, they're all pretty, those first 3 are pretty low in price, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, generally, 3 Crowns Sherry will sit around the €40 mark, 1808, anywhere from 30 to 35, and the 3 Crowns Peated in around 45, possibly up to 50, depending on where you're at. So, the way I always look at the 3 Crowns Sherry, I normally say it when I'm talking about the whiskey, but I didn't because the camera was putting me off a wee bit in case Jarlath listens back. But the 3 Crowns Sherry, honestly, it is a breakfast whiskey. It's a great way to look at it. It's easy, it's soft. It's in around that €40 price point. And the porridge, fuck, I don't eat porridge.
Neville McGuire up in Black, wherever his place is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black Line. That's what it does. There's little whiskey.
On the porridge.
Over.
Yeah.
Porridge.
That's I don't bother with the cream or the porridge. But honestly, it's the sort of the way I look at it is, if you open a bottle on a Tuesday night, you don't have a wee glass or 2, and you wake up on Wednesday morning and the bottle's lying empty beside you. Maybe you're lying on the sofa, you didn't make it up the stairs. It's €40. You're not going to cry about it. It's an enjoyable bottle for that price point. So if you do go through it a bit faster than you plan to, nobody's too upset other than whatever office. Who?
Various different distilleries, or just
No, so that is all coming from again along the Cooley Peninsula.
from one distillery?
That's it's not coming from, again, I'm not meant to name certain things, but yeah, that one's again younger, newer liquid, between 5 and 8 year old of the different components. You can probably get a wee idea where that comes from. Into us, recast into fresh first fill bourbons for both components, and then at the time comes, decask them, marry it together, and finish it either in sherry or the peated cask. So once they're married, the 3 Crowns Sherry, generally, now every batch can be a little bit different, as again, variants with the casks, but roughly 3 Crowns Sherry will sit in Oloroso for about 18 months, and the peated cask will be for anywhere from 12 to 15, just depending on the wood that we get from Scotland at that point. But yeah, guys, so that's a nice introduction to the blends. Tell me, is there somebody in the room that was in Dublin in the Palace Bar last night? No? That's right. I was speaking to Jarlath earlier there, because we did the Capuchin charity bottling this year. The tasting was last night in Dublin. Stephen and Jarlath got to go down, have the room set up for them, walk in, talk a wee bit, drink a load of pints, and I think they did like 7 single casks that night. And Jarlath says to me, yeah, somebody told me they were at it last night. They're coming to your tasting in Limerick tonight. And I was like, I'm going to let them down a bit. But honestly, worked with the guys here, got a couple of really special things going on. They were good enough to support the charity themselves. and get the Capuchin cask in to be your sixth whiskey this evening. You actually made it down to the bar tonight. There may be a seventh whiskey at the end for those of you that I think might need it. I mean, I don't work here in the bar. I have no liability. If I think these are blocked, fair play. You have a no. Honestly, on camera recording, please drink responsibly, everybody. All right, that's what we're here for. Well, yes. 1808 and Guinness. Honest to God, best way to spend a tenner. It's something we started working on with a lot of bars, especially up around Belfast. The bars are the best Guinness in town. It's a thing now where you go in, they're almost recommending you have 1808 next to it. Promotions of the two of them get changed for tenner in some places, which is absolutely class. Because I mean, yeah, Madden's Bar Belfast, best Guinness in town. Anybody ever drink up around Belfast? God, sorry, I'm asking stupid questions in that direction. Anybody else? Yeah? Where would you go?
No idea. They're taking me.
Oh, fantastic. Right. I don't think them gates have been open in a couple of years. No, honestly, Madden's in Belfast, my favourite place in town. It just does all what you want a pub to be. Great whiskey, fantastic pints, good hospitality, and the best traditional music in town.
What's it called?
Madden's Bar. Madden, just like in behind Castle Court. So beautiful wee bar. Where was I at? No, I was in Galway today, sorry.
Music, loud music.
Yeah, 7 days a week.
Like really old.
Yep.
That could be it.
Madden's. It's a sort of place you can fall into it for a pint and come out of it 10 hours later. Happens. We're gonna...
White on the outside.
So, Kelly's. Round the corner, you also have Kelly Cellars. Amazing old bar. Great Guinness. Good whiskey selection too. Nicest thing about Kelly's is you can get your Guinness, you can sit by the fire, you can eat oysters in the bar if you're fit to get that table. It's one of the nicest things to do in town. If any, it's sort of sidetracking a bit here, but if any of you are in Belfast at any point, get the Maddens, have a pint, listen to some music. Get the Kellys, have a wee oyster beside the fire. Go round to the Garrick and have the best Irish coffee in Belfast. They actually model it off how the Dead Rabbit do theirs in New York. And it is just the same sort of level. It's absolutely fantastic. So great pubs in Belfast. And what we found was a lot of Southerners had never came near the city until COVID came and our bars were open before yours. And honestly, the hotels in Belfast have never been happier. They were fucking full 7 nights a week. But mostly it was dubs, in fairness, jumping on the train. But yeah, and a lot of them, like I'd done like whiskey tours and stuff on the side. And like you would have them telling you, like honestly, for years, never came near Belfast, never been up in life. People in their 30s have never been in the city. And I would come back 4 or 5 times a year. Love it. It is a great drinking town. And take off from somebody who professionally visits every drinking town in the country.
Yeah, a big festival coming up. Park down here, we have Belfast Whiskey Week, right? In the summer.
We're Belfast Whiskey Week now in the middle of July as well. But there's always class stuff going on in Belfast. Like even Belfast Whiskey Week is on again this summer. It's absolutely class. Buy your tickets now.
Week for 1 day as well.
Oh yeah.
We might do a raffle tonight just for those.
Oh, yeah?
2 tickets as well.
Well, that'd be a good
100%. Absolutely class. Oh, guys, sorry, I also meant to say to you, if you look at the bottom of your tasting mats there, you'll see a couple of Instagram pages. It's Dunville's Irish Whiskey. It's 1808. The font's a bit funny. It looks like a 0. It's actually an O. That's my work whiskey page. If you're just putting pictures up tonight, please tag it so I can share it and the company thinks I'm working. So the company's not thinking I'm just traveling around the country, staying in hotels, having pints. I actually do a bit of work. I mean, so my name being Seamus Ogue, I thought at the time, fuck 1808, this will be a class name. All well and good to have to explain it every single time. So. But yeah, please, if you can tag that, makes me look good. I appreciate it. Right, tell me, where am I at? I keep track of time here because again, it's my 4th tasting in 3 days, so just run a wee bit flat at this point. But guys, any questions in the first 3?
One question, and it's actually 1808 has red foils and grey foils. What is that?
Do you want the honest answer? Can you pause the camera? So we're fair play picking that one up. So the foils is how we began. At the moment, the grey foils are bottlings for the Republic. So this one please, God forbid. But I brought this down from the distillery. There's a UK duty stamp on there. We do pay our duty on everything, even for our samplings. But this is a bottle that I brought from the Belfast market. We have the red foils up there, because again, all the grey cap ones are down in the south with their distributor Sazerac. So that's the reason. But yeah, I mean, that's why all the bottles are turned. They all have the wee sticker on there. They all came down from Belfast for this. But yeah, that's. Any other questions that are more exciting? Oh, right. All happy enough with the first 3 whiskies there, yeah? Yeah. All right, sweet. Guys, so at this point, remember I told you a wee bit late. I told you to hold on to a wee bit of them. You can go back and forth. Please, if you can, take a touch. If you have some of the number 1 left, have a bit of your 3 Crowns Sherry, then have a bit of the 3 Crowns peated afterwards. To have the comparison of like the last year and a half of life, just depending on the wood, that's going to lead us quite nicely into the second half to understand just how much impact proper cask selection actually affects your whiskey itself.
Is there any reason why you haven't advertised the fact that, I mean, the 1808 seems to be a little bit more peated than the 3 Crowns peated, but it doesn't seem to advertise on the 1808 that's peated, whereas on the 3 Crowns it does. It's clearly
so that's like
marketed as peated.
That's the thing. We didn't talk about the peated component into the 1808 because again, the peated component is 4% of the entire mash bill. There's a lot of other stuff going on there. The label's sort of busy enough too. If you start talking about everything going on in there, it get a wee bit lost. But it's mad too. Like we do tastings with 1808. Every room's different. You have some people that will go home and they'll drink a heavily peated 40 ppm whiskey. They'll try the 1808. They'll not pick up a smoke whatsoever. You have somebody who only drinks nice, clean Irish whiskies. Will try that and say, "Fuck, that's too smoky for me." It's very much different. So that's again, like I said, coming to tastings, trying these different whiskies and getting an idea for what you like is going to a whiskey tasting. What's the price for a ticket and membership here?
For membership, €50
Covers you for the year.
for the year, yeah.
And then what's your tasting after that?
20, 25.
Fuck, it's a steal. It's an absolute steal for the whiskey you get come to tastings.
Oh yeah.
So, like that's again, it's my job to travel around and do these things, but also there's a new one we sort of set up myself and a couple other people up in Belfast because we've seen a bit of a gap of monthly whiskey tastings, and like for the price that you get and when the brands bring up and what you get to try is absolutely incredible. And then you throw charity stuff into it as well. You can feel good about drinking whiskey on Monday nights. Not that I've ever had a conscience about it. But yeah, guys, you tried the first and the third together. Anybody there? Yeah. See the huge contrast. And again, right. So with that, I hate the sound of my own voice, and I would hate to spend a Friday night listening to me talking for 2 hours. So we're going to take a 10-minute break here, guys. You can go back, finish your first 3 whiskies if you want. If you want to get a wee cigarette, get a pint from the bars open, or do as you please, run to the bathroom now. Because if anybody gets up in the second half to walk across the room, I'll be taking the piss out of you. Okay? Right, we'll catch you. Time is now 8:34. We'll see you in a 1:45. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not saying you try, you do. We're not telling you. Do you mind if I take this first one? I'm being a cheeky. You're not. You're fine. How are you? Are you good? Yeah. Good to see you again. How are you? Very successful turnout. Yeah, yeah. Great. Yeah. As always. Finally, you're not the greatest, you. Yeah.
It's on there, so
That's on and all. Right. Are we missing anyone? No, seems pretty
All right,
good.
guys, we're going to get going again with
All right, Limerick. Guys, second half. Good to go, yeah? All right, so sorry I got wrapped up a wee bit there in a conversation about Jarlath Watson, as if I don't hear about him enough and how I'll never be as good as him. But, right, guys, we're coming in the second half here is single malts, okay? We have 3 single malts in front of us there, from 10 to 12-year-old. We're finishing a cast strength one there too. So before you go at this, I'm not talking to you directly, it's all right. Look, before you go at it, just a wee bit about the single malt range. When I told you earlier, 1808 came later down the line. We began with one product when we revived Dunville's, and that was what we call our PX10. All right. You look at this bottle, you see the green glass, you see the old style label design. This is how the Dunville's looked in the late 1800s. It was always green glass. This design of label is like you see old posters around a lot of places too. It looked very like this. We sort of just digitally enhanced it and got a nicer shaped bottle this time around. But it's Dunville's always was single malt, finished in, not even finished, it was fully matured in sherry casks. Because the 1800s, the whole bourbon bars weren't coming into Ireland the way they do now. The bourbon bar law not really being a thing at that point. So most Irish whiskies were matured fully in old world casks: sherry, rum, port, and wine. All right, so that's why with the Dunville's whiskey range, we revived it, going back to even as much as doing the traditional floor malting, to being single malt, to having a big sherry influence, have the same color, same style of bottle and label. If you look at that whiskey bottom left, number 4, it's a nice big dark color to it, right? So we do get asked quite a lot, for a liquid that naturally dark, why do you hide it in a green glass bottle? Thing is, we're reviving the brand and trying to keep to tradition as much as possible with it, okay? Within the Echlinville's own name releases coming out in a couple of months' time, we have a bit more experimental and modern stuff going on, but with Dunville's, it's about tradition and honouring the brand name. So please have a little nose, have a little taste of this. You're now drinking PX10. It was a 10-year-old single malt finished in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. Anyone ever drink Pedro Jimenez sherry by itself? Sophisticated table here, is it? Fucking classy boys.
With a straw.
So if you look at sherry cask finished whiskies in both Irish and Scottish, generally it's going to be Oloroso. Pedro Jimenez. Do you know what? Like, we don't usually find it's most people have the first sip of this. First, who in the room has tried this before? Happy enough to drink it again tonight? Yeah, fair. That's a common enough response. Yeah, normally you pour this one and conversation starts, which is a class thing. I should have given you a wee break there. But Pedro Jimenez sherry itself, just so you start to understand the differences, which, fuck, there's times I sort of find myself, excuse the language, there's times I find myself sort of running away, almost talking about sherry more so than whiskey. But like I said, the impact on these casks is so big, it makes the same base malt a very different liquid in the bottle because we've put such an emphasis onto it. So Pedro Jimenez, or PX for short, it's a style of sherry that is generally about 10 to 15 times sweeter than Oloroso. If you see some says sherry cask on it, you can assume it's going to be Oloroso. First, second, third fill, be it a hogshead, be it a larger butt, sherry butt, the impact's going to be different, and it's quite a broad spectrum. With PX, we really want to showcase that, okay? So we began with it. Like I said, it's about 10 to 15 times sweeter and higher in sugar content than Oloroso. Pedro Jimenez itself is a varietal of grape. When they take that to produce the sherry, they sun-dry the grapes first, so almost like little raisins, and then they ferment that into the sherry from there. Bigger, thicker, sweeter liquid. After the first sip, does anybody find themselves almost like chewing in the back of the mouth? Friday night in Limerick, huh? But I planned that one all week. Yeah, look, see when you see our green glass bottles with that label, you know a couple of things about the liquid is going to be the case outside of the acid series with the dark rose label. It's going to be 46%. It's going to be double distilled malt, and it's going to be finished in sherry casks following our 3 rules. 3 rules of our sherry cask finish is always going to be a hogshead barrel, smaller cask, around 200, 250 liters, meaning that you get more contact with the wood to the liquid than you would do with the sherry bottle. So it's going to be first fill. I mean, the last thing coming out of that cask was the sherry itself. So we get the barrels really good fresh. The liquid goes straight into it. So you get more of the sherry impact into the whiskey itself. And the third thing is it's always a nice long finish. So, I mean, a lot of brands, a lot of other whiskies will have a finish. It could be from 3 months up to possibly about 3 years at times. That's for bigger age statements generally too. It's a 10-year-old malt, and it has spent just shy of 4 years in Pedro Jimenez casks. Reason why we get to do that, again, comes down to Jarlath Watson. Jarlath, by trade, is an accountant, so his technical title with us is financial director. His self-proclaimed title is master blender, head of whiskey, fucking everything else. Actually, better yet, about 2 months ago, I was looking through Eventbrite, just searching what whiskey tastings are happening in Belfast for the next few while. I've seen one popped up in Bar 1661 in Dublin. Bar we do a lot of work with, best cocktail bar in Ireland, someone I have a really good relationship with. I've seen Dunville's tasting on there. I clicked in and think, fuck, I'd like to do this. Clicked into it. Like I said, Jared did Capuchin and Palace Bar last night with all the cast samples because he gets through the fancy stuff. Bar 1661 masterclass, Charlotte Watson, brand ambassador. A great Charlotte, you're the brand ambassador now, are you? You do a bar training from tomorrow afternoon. Wasn't having it, but that's it. He was until I was hired 2 years ago. Charlotte was doing every tasting himself, as well as doing the books and running the company and his sister company, Euro Cables, which distributes electrical components around Europe, which is what funds that company. That's why we're fit to have 10-year-old liquid in the warehouse. It hasn't been sold yet. So for him, it's great in the fact that we're fit to have these casks, big, beautiful, expensive casks. We're putting liquid into it. We're not selling our liquid at 3 or 4 or 5 years old, because generally every other distillery, every normal distillery in the country has 2 people working for them. They have a financial director and they have their master blender. And the blender will say, I want these big casks. I want to sit this liquid for ages. I only want to use first fill. The financial director will say, catch a grip. You're not getting them. Buy these casks. Buy the older ones, shorter time, get the whiskey out the door, get it sold, get money back in. We have the beautiful problem where financial director and the head of whiskey are the same person. And when he argues with himself, what wins is the whiskey head, which is absolutely class for us. And it's why we get to do so many big single malts the way we have. Guys, I don't like talking about tasting notes so much because I think whiskey's quite subjective. I'll be a bit broader on it. For me, with this one, Pedro Jimenez itself, big, thick, like treacle or almost what's the word I always use? They'll come back to me. I think the candied walnuts, bit of like sort of Christmas cake spices coming through. Same thing you get in the sherry itself, really well impacted in the whiskey here. How do you find that one? Any other flavors we're getting? You see what I mean? That, yeah. Depends how much I like it. So I think generally this one will sit around 70, 75 euros. And I suppose probably the best place in Limerick for most of the range will be fine wines.
Drop around 80 euros.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the starting decision.
Yeah. So, but
Even after your site at the moment, what's about 80?
yeah. So guys, also sorry, I've only got the email last week about it, but so we submitted the whiskies to the World Whiskey Awards there back in I think October, and we got word back there last week about the national winners. So the PX10 that we have in front of us now actually picked up the award at the World Whiskey Awards 2024 for Best Irish Single Malt 12 years and under. So it's up against a few big players in that category. It's not the first time it's won it. So with that, cheers, Jarlath. You've done a good job.
Cheers.
I'm going to look back at YouTube and send them that wee clip. I'd be delighted.
All the PX12, are they all the cast strength?
Oh, yeah. So that's a great point. Yes. Has anybody had our PX12 before? So with PX12, that's what came about accidentally. We said we began with PX10. It was our first liquid. First year we went down to Whiskey Live. All we had was a bottle of PX10. Well, we had cases of one product was PX10. Went down, revived the brand with that to begin with. PX10 proved to be so popular in its first couple of years. The liquid that we had left in cask, destined to be a 15-year-old PX release, had to get bottled and brought out at 12 years old because the PX10 was just simply wiped out of the market. It got consumed. It was incredible. So we do still have some PX12 out and about there at the moment. Essentially, it's the same liquid left in the PX casks for further 2 years. So I think the PX elements you're getting there, super heightened. For me, all year long, I prefer the PX10, but cold weather, winter, in front of a fire, that's the thing. The PX12 is just incredible. But PX10 for me, all year round, it's what I pick up. And price-wise, that one can sit around 75, 80 euros generally. It's our signature model. It's what people know. It's what they recognize. The old Dunville's label. It's the one that we've had around the longest. And personally, I think it's just absolutely fantastic whiskey.
I mean, Dunville seems to do something special with PX So
Yeah.
what are you doing that's different than everyone else? With using different,
It's
age range or what?
it's the three sherry rules we have. Like, I mean, you put PX on your bottle if you bought a sherry bought around 500 liters. You can buy one of them. It's been used 2 or 3 times for different whiskey beforehand. You put your whiskey in it for even 3 months. You can put PX on the label. The thing is, our three rules. Again, the beauty of having the financial director that we have, it allows us to first fill, long finish, smaller cask. The impact from that onto the wood is absolutely incredible as a result. And we work with a really, really good cask broker to get these things. So all the barrels are all grade A, pretty much come into the distillery, coming off the lorry, they're inspected, we either accept or reject them on the spot. And that's it. Before we buy anything, they're accepted or rejected before we decide that it's good enough for the whiskey to go into. So if anyone's familiar with the Dunville single cask range, like the green label bottles, generally we reserve them for whiskey shops, whiskey bars, and whiskey societies in Ireland. It's we have a waiting list for about 3 years at the moment. We try to keep at most 3 to 4 releases every year. The likes of the Friend at Hand in Belfast, the Palace Bar, Celtic Whiskey Shop, James Fox they've just got their second one just before Christmas there. Fuck easier. So the first and so far only society we've done a green label for was Waterford Society. They got an 11-year-old Palo Cortado last year, and honestly, it's absolutely class. I couldn't get my hands on the bottle myself. That's how Waterford Society is absolutely class. If anybody's ever been down to any of their tastings and know any of them, like they're absolutely great. But they got an 11-year-old Palo Cortado, and it's sold out as quick as a lot of the other labels too. But Palo Cortado we'll chat a bit more about in the next couple of whiskies. At this point, I'm taking a wee second. Talk to yourselves. I'm having a sip of this. Fucking great, isn't it?
And like, just for me personally, this even a red breast well.
So but that was a funny thing. So like, do you remember over COVID, whenever like there was that whole red breast shortage because a lot of it ended up in America instead of here. So what we found was with people who came to societies and tastings and stuff, familiar with PX10, PX12, they recommended their friends who couldn't get their hands on the red breast. Says, tell you what, if you like a bigger, more full body, that nice sort of sherry impact, get it up all Dumbles 10 or 12. And our sales during the COVID period when there was that shortage of red breast were incredible. And thankfully, a lot of people have stuck with the brand since. But yeah, it was a really nice opportunity for us. And to be honest, to be put in that same sort of platform as probably the most bang on the money Irish whiskey out there was an absolute compliment to Dunville to be sort of regarded in that. So has anybody finished their whiskey number 4 there? Before I tell you to keep it for the end? I'm only joking. No. Guys, see by the time we get to the whiskey we're finishing on, you're not going to want to put anything else in your glass after that. It's not in front of you right now because I don't trust it. And we'll come out afterwards. Like I said, for those who behaved themselves up to that point, like a naughty or nice list, I suppose. But right, if you want to lift whiskey number 5, yeah. You did. You weren't fucking listening. That one was just shy of 4 years. Just shy of 4 years in the PX. So guys, the whiskey next to it is. It's also next to it right up here. You look, PX10, Palo Cortado 10. All right. The 2 bottles very much similar. Only real change being a bit of a difference in colorization on the labels. So we also have a 20-year-old Oloroso and a 21-year-old Palo Cortado, all entered the core range about 15, 16 months ago. So you'll notice is the same design. The coloring's a little bit different. Capsules for PX will be sky blue, Palo Cortado is grey, and Oloroso is a lovely dark green. The Oloroso 20-year-old bottle at 46%, you're not getting the tri-tide, unfortunately. But it also was over at the World Whiskey Awards and picked up Best Irish Single Malt for 13 to 20-year-old. So it's absolutely fantastic. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but we'll chat more about that one later on. So yeah, guys, whiskey number 5, Palo Cortado, which is, in my opinion, it's an incredible liquid. It's another funny one. It's probably the rarest. Pardon? Oh, sorry, thank you. Color-wise, compared to the PX, absolutely compared to PX. That's right. So just for reference, PX. If you ever go to Spain, you go to the ice cream shops and stuff. Most of them tend to have fridges full of beer in the back of it, which is something that we should get at too. But I've always spotted if we go over there. You have like a clear glass bottle lying sideways on the top shelf, and it's PX sherry. Because when it's chilled, it's big and sweet. When it's chilled, it becomes really thick and biscuits. Then let you pour PX sherry over their ice cream. like a syrup, crush some walnuts on that. I'm not encouraging you to put alcohol in all your food, but we're talking about porridge and whiskey earlier, sherry and ice cream, honestly. It was so Joe McGowan, one of the reasons why I got into working in whiskey in the first place. He is the Redbreast and IDL Prestige manager up in the north. Joe goes to the sherry region maybe 3 times a year. He was just there last week again. Huge into sherry. What he will swear by is Marks and Spencer's own brands. He worked directly with the style. You'll love to 350ml bottles of PX Marks and Spencer. So if you've never tried it before you get into doing your bigger, fancier stuff, for the sake of a tenner, pick up a wee small bottle of PX Sherry at Marks and Spencer's. Try it neat. Try it next to whiskey. Understand better the influence from the cask. Put it in your fridge. Get a big bowl of ice cream and go to town on it. But honestly, PX, absolute class. But so PX is what we've been doing for about 10 years now. What you're about to have next, we released a couple of single casks, but it's only entered the core range as of late 2022. So you have now is Palo Cortado 10. Have we any Spanish speakers in the room? Remember I said earlier, like there's not that many pints in the room. Means we had different compared to other tastings. That was the most different response. Generally, it's a load of "Si, senors." There's one fellow in the back, sort of sheepishly put the hand up. So I believe you actually do speak Spanish. Palo Cortado. Translate to you as. Yeah. Okay. So right, so you know sherry well enough then.
I never liked sherry, but kind of going on me to whiskey.
Okay, it's the same as well, it's the same as tequila. Like a lot of people in Ireland think they hate tequila because we all grew up drinking 4 or 5 shots of it in a night of 20 drinks. Like, that was really cheap, nasty tequila. Like the likes of the one with the wee fucking plastic sombrero on it, or the lid. Not going to name names, but like stuff like that. And then you realize, no, you don't hate tequila. If you have a good one, you can sip a nice tequila like a whiskey. The problem is, you drink really awful. You drink it with 20 other drinks, and you get a hangover, and you blame it all on the tequila as opposed to all the vodkas and everything else. So
it comes down to quality. It's the same with what you're doing.
Yeah, everything, 100%, 100%. And so same thing with sherry. Like most people in the country, you think sherry, you think the likes of like Harvey's Bristol Cream or like the blended sherries out there. I mean, yes, they are a blend, but if you really want to get into your sherries, honestly, it's something I started doing with a lot of bartender trainings. Is if we're lining up PX, Palo Cortado, and Oloroso finished whiskeys together, I will actually pour the 3 sherries next to it and say, try the whiskey, try the sherry, come back, understand what's coming from it. It's an education piece. So please go grab a bottle of PX, get a bucket of ice cream, a couple of glasses, have a nice wee Friday night sometime. So, guys, with that, if you don't have a wee nose, a wee taste of whiskey number 5, Palo Cortado essentially translates into broken or cut stick. Reason for that is it begins life as a Fino, sometimes an Amontillado sherry, which are the sherries that are produced adding floor yeast into the liquid. Stir it in there, put it into cask, and that will create like a layer, like a protective skin on the top of the liquid in the barrel, so it doesn't oxidize during fermentation. Anaerobic maturation, essentially. As a result, like think Tio Pepe for your Fino sherry. Dry, sort of almond lightness, almost like tropical fruits going on, as opposed to Oloroso being bigger, juicier, red fruits, cinnamon and clove. So when that happens, roughly 1 in every 500 barrels, that layer, protective layer, will erupt or partially break in certain areas during the maturation process. As that happens, it begins to oxidize. There's a scientific term. Any scientists in the room? Drinking whiskey on a Friday, I doubt it. It's like malolactic fermentation or something is the word for it. Yeah, after I said it, you do, yeah. We'll talk about it in pints and weddings, that'd be grand. So that sort of happens during the process in like roughly 1 in 500 barrels. So sherry casks also have a beautiful marking on them, basically chalk or paint. PX, really simply the right PX on it. Oloroso, draw a circle, put a line through it. For Fino, there's a single line sideways on the barrel. Once these guys realize that this cask has partially erupted or broken, it becomes Palo Cortado, they put another line through it, making a lovely little X. If you look at the bottle, if you can see it, there's a wee X off the Palo Cortado cask market just at the bottom here where my thumb is. So, in a broken stick, the thing is, this whiskey's fucked up. It's done. We got to the sherry. This has happened. It's ruined. It's not going to be a Fino sherry anymore. Somewhere down the line, many, many years ago, somebody in Spain decided to leave one of them casks lying for a while. A few months later, they tried it and realized Fino sherry might have fucked up, but it's turned out beautifully. Palo Cortado was the name given to it, broken stick or cut stick. So again, they're very hard to find casks. They're very expensive casks. Thank you, Jared Watson. But we've been lucky enough to have a few whiskey casks put into them. Now, first time we did this was 2015. We didn't just buy one barrel to try it out. You got one, put it for 2 weeks, initially see how it turned out, but he already had another couple dozen ordered. A couple dozen were ordered, all got filled with 12-year-old single malt at that time, and released 21-year-old there like last year, or 2 years ago, sorry. So it was a big gamble. What you find is with that malolactic fermentation, if you put the whiskey in that for a short period of time, I always give off Charlotte too, because he describes that protective layer as a crust. I'm like, that's an awful word to use. It's not beautiful. Don't use that. But he talks about this part, and he would always say it's like a sour milk note. Charlotte, you stop. You're not doing my favorite. So it's not like a sour milk. It's that sort of element of you have the acidity coming through, like a nice sort of tangy bite to it, but you still have a nice mouthfeel. Big like punch for cocktail, okay? It's not sort of thing to it. But so if you finish your whiskey in Palo Cortado for a short space of time, initially you can pick up those unpleasant flavors from it. What we found was we had like for a 21-year-old, 7 years is what it took for Palo Cortado to actually turn out to be what we wanted it to be and to be absolutely incredible. It's a big time because you're sitting 4 or 5 years in trying that cask, thinking, "Fuck it, that's not worked out." There's quite a few £1,000s worth of stock putting these barrels here. Not great, but it worked out really well for us in the end, thankfully. But a huge gamble. So with the 10-year-old Palo Cortado and the 21 essentially get a really nice big developing transition and finish the whiskey, where it begins like those Fino elements, sort of Fino flavors, and it finishes a couple minutes later in your mouth, like Oloroso. With the 10-year-old, this is spent just about 3 years in Palo Cortado cask, and a lot of that's a lot more condensed. It's happening all at once. Really big whiskey, yeah. You want to try? You weren't waiting for me, were you? Of course you weren't. So if you've tried that, there's a lot going on in that whiskey. It's very much condensed. It's happening at once. Spice-driven. A couple of flavors that I always pick up from it would be a bit of dark chocolate, a bit of coffee, and a bit of tobacco, which if you sum them up together, it's just breakfast. So
Oily, really oily, buttery.
yeah,
right?
it's on this. But like with that one, like if you go back, have 2 or 3 different tips, you'll pick up different things every time. There's so much going on in that whiskey. Right, any flavors we find? Anything unusual? There's no such thing as a wrong answer unless it's really stupid. Yep. The nose in this. So the nose in this one's very delicate. I suppose also we had some really smoky noses to begin with. The PX is huge, is a huge impact flavor. 40-50%. Doesn't have as much on the nose going on, but the mouthfeel and the finish on this one is great. Absolutely class.
Yeah. There doesn't seem to be many people using Palo Cortado cask,
No.
right?
So no, Palo Cortado isn't all that common. It's not that popular. It's not that common a cask because, like I said, a genuine Palo Cortado is roughly 1 every 500 barrels of Fino. So the likes of these bodegas and sherry houses that have them want to keep them as much as possible. They're an expensive cask to buy. Again, thankfully, we have somebody who's a bit foolish with money when it comes to whiskey, so we get to get a few of them. But yeah, it's a tough cask to come along. It's also a gamble. A lot of people don't have the patience or the time or the resources to let it sit for as long as it might need to really take on the good finish you want from it. But guys, at this point, PX 10, Palo Cortado 10. Who preferred PX?
I did initially, but even now
Preferred PX? Right. And who would say they preferred Palo Cortado over the PX? Yeah, fantastic. Fine wines.
It's over here now.
You love a bit of dark chocolate, do you? Class. Like, you see what I mean? Like, the chocolate element is in there.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's been different nights where I've drank different whiskies beforehand, but like normally I get dark chocolate on that. There's been a couple of times where I'm getting like a milk chocolate element instead. Whether it's just the PX beforehand, maybe like just has a thicker, heavier sort of taste in the mouth, but generally dark chocolate I get on it. So like dark chocolate, tobacco, coffee. Breakfast, honest, bartender breakfast. All right, Trudy. Guys, stick with me. We are going to step it up a wee level here now, all right? So the last two whiskies you had were 46%. The three Crown blends were 43.5. Each of it was 40%. We're going to step now into, well, what Dunville's is quite well known for across different societies in the whiskey world in Ireland and abroad, is a single cask. This is the one that was being launched, or sorry, the tasting for it in Palace Bar, Dublin last night. This is a 12-year-old single malt, also finished in Palo Cortado for 3 years. So think what you just had beforehand. This is 2 years older, same at the time on Palo Cortado, bottled a bit higher. So instead of 46%, it's 58.6% ABV. So big whiskey. This was our release this year with the Friends of Irish Whiskey Group. Anyone here in the Friends of Irish Whiskey Group on Facebook? Yeah, only a few. It's jump into it, join it. Honestly, it's absolute class. So you see the logo, Friends of Irish Whiskey. They've started doing a special charity bottling every year for the Capuchin charity. So you'll have you're all good. You're grand. Work away. No. Is there whiskies over there for you? Sweet, good enough. Right, so this was this year's Capuchin charity bottling we did with Friends of Irish Whiskey. 12-year-old single malt, finished in Palo Cortado for 3 years, bottled at 58.6%. All profits in this bottle were going straight to the charities, between the Capuchin charity, Cork Penny Dinners, and a homeless shelter up in Belfast as well. So I think from the bottle alone, they do a lot of different fundraisers and tasting events. But from the sale of the single cask alone, I think there was something like 20 grand raised this year, which is absolutely class to have people drinking whiskey for a good cause. And you can up your class for yourselves, because we're buying tickets tonight and the guys buying the bottles, money going to charity, means all taking part in that. So thank you very much for supporting us on it.
When you go hand in hand with the whole Dunville's, back in the day, I think the Dunville's were providing housing to their.
Which is I will. Sorry, I didn't go into the Dunville's history all that much earlier, but like, see, like I'm just on the Falls Road in Belfast. If anybody knows it, fair play to you. Just off the Falls Road, the distilleries and the Grosvenor Road sort of intersect with it. Dunville Park still stands today. 1898, Robert Lambert Dunville, the head of the family at the time, donated. It was 4.5 acres and about £8,000 at the time, closer to $1 million today, sort of financially. Donated that to the city to build a park. So all of his distillery workers, there's so many of them at the point living in the area, sort of becoming a built-up area, having young families. He wanted a nice recreational area for them. So you have Dunville's Park with a fountain, and it still stands today. Also, Belfast Zoo came about because he was a bit of a mad bastard too. So real quick on that one, because I want to get you into the whiskey. Belfast Zoo stands today because Robert Dunville, he lived at a Redburn estate. It's a country park. You can still walk around it today, but the house is now gone. But there's still a lovely little shrine and mural to Bruno, Bruno was his pet American black bear. Loads of mad exotic animals. Had them on site. You still see a mural to Bruno today. The bear pit's still intact. But it got to the point where so many people try to sneak onto his grounds to steal these mental animals. It's becoming a danger. So he donated all the animals to Belfast City Council, along with some money, and said build somewhere funded, look after it so people can come see these animals safely. So Belfast Zoo came around as a result of a whiskey brand, which is absolutely nuts. There's more mental stories about him too, but I'll save that for later on. So guys, cask 1765, 12-year-old Palo Cortado. I'm delighted to have this here today. This is actually we decided to go into the lineup on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's like the official launch for it was last night, so we haven't been able to do this at tastings before. I was last night. Outside of the Palace Bar last night was the first and only times we've done it at tasting. Charles and Stephen had that one covered. So I'm delighted to have it here tonight, and thank you very much for supporting it again. So look at all the components you had in your Palo Cortado 10. So that's why your tasting mat has 6 glasses on there, whereas we're doing 7 whiskeys tonight because we decided sort of last minute. If you're going to do this, it can't be your first introduction to Palo Cortado. Let's do a 10-year-old lower ABV first. So you know what you're looking for. I've covered the sherry talk. At this point, have a wee glass. You'll find all those things massively amplified with a single malt base behind it. To make that dark chocolate almost becomes like I think like Terry's chocolate orange almost. There's a bit more of an orange coming through, a huge big spice burst at the end, and it really lingers. So guys, we'll take a couple of minutes. I'm going to shut my mouth and let you enjoy that whiskey. Guys, I'm going to start walking around the room with the bottle here. Remember I told you earlier, if anyone wants to post pictures and stuff tonight, I think it's a nice touch if you do post pictures online. I think it's so I'm going to walk around, give you a chance, all right? No, we'll not do that. Plausible deniability. Class. So this is what we're working with right now. Also I know you're familiar with the old single cast releases. You notice the new tube design rather than the grey. It's a whole lot nicer. But yeah, and quality assured by the big man himself. It's good. That's an autograph. So that is what we're currently drinking. This is our 12-year-old release. You notice the beautiful signature there is the guy I've been talking about a lot tonight. That is Darlis' autograph. It is even so the tube design. Previously our single cask used to be done in like a nice sort of grey tube design. The black one. This is only I think the 3rd bottle we've done in it, but it's in my opinion gorgeous. Super. This one, I'm not saying all examples. There's still about 22 bottles left on our distillery website. Under £135 a bottle. How did you find the liquid? Good, yeah. Open the. Yeah. Yeah, it was like 200 bucks. There was the one that like it's like 2 over Christmas. Actually, Right, Shane stuff. Let him talk first. Yeah. It's just finished. I'd say so.
Now put on your. Which? Yeah. Yeah. It's happening close. And as well, yeah. You might not set one up.
Yeah.
Two,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, at the moment, we're not like a type of prize. Like I told you there might be a sense of like, so really late for that. We'll be back to this. We'll drop another whiskey in people's night in a minute. Please do not touch it until we all be good. Is anybody reaching for it? Even for a nose, even now.
Is there the risk to play on?
The thing is,
Look off that stream.
That's your 3X single cask, right?